Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines. This is the Hal Lindsey Report. And now, Hal Lindsey.
The only problem with socialism is pretty soon you run out of other people's money. I'm a refugee from California. I moved back over to Texas a couple of years ago after living since 1962 in California. They keep slapping on bigger and bigger taxes, giving big handouts to people to keep their votes. And they don't see that every day there is a flood of people leaving California, the producers. I don't mean to get political here, but this has spiritual overtones, let me tell you. Now, the one thing that is holding back the reemergence of Roman Empire Phase 2, the revival of Rome, is dear old USA. Now, I said that, the late great planet Earth, in 1969. Let me read you something. You know, I hadn't read this book in years. And when I saw some of these things, I said, Lord, you really were active back then, weren't you? Because I know I didn't come up with that. Here, on page 95, a fourth factor, I'm talking in this context, about why the Roman Empire hasn't begun to reform yet, or to be rebuilt. So the fourth factor, according to the prophetic outlook, is the United States. The United States will cease being the leader of the West and will probably become in some way a part of the new European sphere of power. Then another statement, however, it is certain that the leadership of the West must shift to Rome in its revived form, and if the U.S. is still around at that time, it will not be the power that it now is. All right, I've been waiting for 50-something years because I knew about this over 50 years ago. And I have said all along, the United States has to fade from power. Breaks my heart. I love this country. I love this country. There's never been another country like it. And it's not a democracy as created by our founders. It is a constitutional republic. But you cannot have our form of government if people start gnawing away at the meaning of the Constitution. And they change our way of financial structure from free enterprise to transferring the wealth of one group to others. That's not the way God created things. He said, if a man will not work, neither should he eat. Come on. Come on. And the people genuinely need help. Help them. But when a government does it, it sets up a bureau which it's the nearest thing to eternal life that you have is a bureau. And when they set up a bureau that's supposed to be this philanthropic, all-knowing, all-giving thing, they perpetuate themselves by finding more people to give money to. Oh, well. Much as I hate it, it had to happen. I knew it was coming. I fought hard to keep it from coming, but now that it is coming, in the next 4 years, you're not going to recognize this country. We are headed to be a second-rate power very shortly. Right now, there's one other power block I didn't bring in, and that's the kings of the East. I said back there in this book, I said, be careful, because the sleeping giant of Asia is awaking. And I said in here, Red China is destined to become the #1 economic power in the world. They officially became that last month. That's what they now say. It's now the biggest economy in the world. They own us. They own us. And soon they're going to collect in an awful way. And sure, they'll keep taking Obama's credit card. And it isn't just Obama. We've had presidents before him that, they could never balance a budget. If they were a husband or a wife in a home, they couldn't get away with it. You got to balance your budget. You can't live on debt getting greater and greater all the time. And now the sleeping giant of Asia is awake. And that's another thing that shows we're very near the time when the tribulation begins. Because, listen, do you know China had to catch up quickly, technologically. Did you know that no other nation has ever gone from exploding a crude atomic bomb to setting off a sophisticated hydrogen bomb in 2.5 years? China did. Of course, they stole all of it from us. They didn't have to go through all of the hell. Yeah, Clinton did that. And also, they did not have intercontinental ballistic missiles. Clinton really helped them there. Even let them launch some of our satellites, and through that, they back-engineered everything. All right. All of that stuff is soon going to be gone, I could talk about politics and so forth, and, it's good to know what's going on, and yet you can't get all sunk into that, because there's one thing we've got to know. The great power of that 7-year tribulation cannot emerge as a power until this Satan's masterpiece appears on the scene. The Antichrist. If I had time, I'd go through chapter 13 and chapter 17 of the book of Revelation. I had my wife so stirred up she couldn't sleep a couple of nights because the Lord was showing me things I hadn't seen before. And perhaps I'll have a chance to teach that here and do something with that, because there are new things that are coming to me after all these years of studying prophecy. But the important thing is, we're waiting for the United States to fade from power so that the West will not survive unless something comes up in Europe. And the only thing that they have organizationally that could hold them together is a European Economic Union. Now, the thing is, there's another thing that has to happen before the Roman Empire can really be revived. And it revives together with a man who gets a fatal wound and raised again. See, Rome fell apart, and it's like it died. And for it to be raised up again will take a miracle. Right. Just like it says there is a man who was, is not, and yet will be. And he will receive a fatal head wound. Actually, it doesn't say a head wound. It says one of its heads will be wounded. And the heads stand for an economic, or I should say an empire. So it'll be a fatal wound. I don't know where, but it'll be with a deadly force of a sword. But that could be a M1 or a M15 deadly weapon. and he'll be raised from the dead. And when he is raised from the dead, the whole world is going to follow him. And Satan is going to give him all of his power. Do you have any idea what that means? You know, Satan tried to give the glory and control of the world to Jesus, and he turned it down. And he showed, it says, in a moment of time, all of the glory and the riches. You know what kind of power that takes? There weren't even televisions then. And he's just dazzled with all of this glory and power and beauty and all that. He turned it down. This one will not. And we do know that this man has to come out of the people of Rome. You know, a lot of people today, good prophecy teachers, are saying, oh, the Antichrist is, Islam's going to take over and the Antichrist is going to be a Muslim. Let me just read one more thing and then I'm going to bring it to a close. I didn't look at my watch. Daniel chapter 9. Daniel chapter 9. Actually, the prophecy in Daniel is probably the most amazing thing. It's the greatest wonder of the world. I'll put it that way. What is predicted in Daniel chapter 9 is just amazing. It predicts the exact day that Jesus would ride into Jerusalem on a donkey and proclaim himself to be the Messiah. To the day. 173,660 days from the day Artaxerxes Longimanus of Persia freed the Israelites who had been in captivity from Babylon to Persia, freed them to go back and rebuild and restore Jerusalem. From that time, it was 69 sabbatical years, biblical years, and it works out to be 173,660 days. On that day was the day that Jesus said, if you had only known this day, but now it is hidden from your eyes, because it was the day that he rode into Jerusalem and for the first time told people to proclaim the Messiah. Before that, somebody would say, they'd get healed and they'd say, you're the Messiah. He'd say, shh, don't tell anybody. But here he said, if they should hold their peace, the stones will cry out. Because it was the 173,660th day. It had to happen. But that's in the context of what I want to point out here. In verse 26, then after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. That is, after he rides in, the Messiah would be cut off, which is a Jewish idiom for being killed. He'd be put to death and will have nothing. Now here's the key. The people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And until the end, wars and desolations are determined. All right, now, who destroyed Jerusalem and the temple in 70 AD? The Romans, the Roman 10th Legion. Titus, a Roman of great distinction. Now, we know that they were Romans, all right? Now it says there is a prince that's going to come in the future. And of what people will he be? The same ones that destroyed the city and the sanctuary in 70 AD. So don't give me any Muslim mess.
Yeah, come on.
They are the Romans, out of the Roman culture and people. And it's this guy that's going to be mortally wounded, be brought back to life, and the whole world will worship him.